Hello, everyone, and welcome to Herosner Podcast Season 4, Episode 5. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, and to all of you who are listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, we appreciate you tuning in. It is Thursday, November 16th, 2023. I'm your host, Vic Aslanyan, and as always, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Mr. Mike Balyan, where we talk about our great Armenian history, covering different eras, topics, and people. Please hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you're listening to us, give us a 5-star review on the platform that you enjoy listening to our voices on your drive or whatever you're doing, running, exercising, whatever.
Either way.
Yeah. Today's episode, we'll be talking about the strife between two brothers, Smbat III and Ashot IV, and their internal battle to basically rule the Bagratuni kingdom of Armenia after the death of their father, Gagik I. And we talked about Gagik previous episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that.
I'm sure many people can relate to the conflict between two brothers.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this before.
Yeah, of course.
In the past.
Of course we have.
In all the episodes we've done when it comes to.
But I mean, there's a lot more at stake.
Yeah.
A lot more at stake.
This is the information we're going to talk about today is pretty much going to paint the picture of pretty much how we are going or heading, I should say, towards the downfall of the Bagratuni kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there on, we'll get into the Byzantine rule until the Cilician kingdom was formed, so forth. So we have a lot of great information and episodes coming up. But before we start talking about these two brothers, as we mentioned in the last episode, we will be unveiling our new sculpture of Haik Nahapet, and which is a special piece that Mike designed for the organization Hike for Our Heroes. We've mentioned them many times before. We had Tavit, who is the one of the main founders of the organization, on the show.
Yep.
If you guys haven't watched that episode, go back and watch it. They're doing some amazing work in Armenia, along with veterans of Armenia, helping the displaced families from Artsakh. Now, as you guys can see on the screen, this is the actual sculpture. So hopefully you're enjoying what you're seeing. I gotta say, Mike, you knocked it out of the park. You know, we wanted to keep this as close as possible to the original.
Pay homage to Garlen Nurijanyan,
yes,
who was the original designer and sculptor of the piece. That was, I think, erected in the 1970s. I forget exactly the date, but we didn't want to deviate from that.
Yeah.
Wanted to keep it original.
Yeah.
And maybe add a little bit of spice to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We went back and forth with a few different designs.
Yeah. The original sculpture was a little bit more stylized, I guess you could say, right?
A little bit. But I mean, when you look at, if you look at the silhouette of the piece is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, him in that pose.
Yeah.
Just released an arrow.
Yeah.
His legs.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. And I'm getting a phone call while we are doing this. Should I take it?
I don't know, man. Depends on who it is.
Daughter. Oh,
Dad, are you live on air?
Continue while I type a message.
So, we wanted to keep it pretty, we wanted to pay homage to it instead of trying to do something different. But I guess we can give a little bit of spoiler, but me and Vic have talked about possibly doing a little bit more of a grandiose piece that we want to do. And it's something that I'm kind of excited to embark on. I'm not going to lie. Probably be a bigger piece, multi-character. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can give some information away about the ideas we have, but what we're thinking about is we found the way how to do these sculptures of these great characters and heroes to be more of the kind of like in an action pose,
Storytelling.
storytelling.
Yeah.
So when you're
I
looking
think
at
that's
it,
key.
I think it's great to have a bust, and it represents the hero, but we want to take him to a different level where when you have that piece, you see what they were kind of going through at that moment and telling the story of that character. So, but so as you guys saw on the screen or continue seeing, we have two versions. We have the white marble and the bronze. What we're going to do is, as of right now, you can actually go on our Instagram page or go on Hike for Our Heroes Instagram page, and you will see a story where we want to take your opinion. Which one do you guys prefer? The white marble or the bronze or even both? But here's the part to this. We're making this only for this occasion because we're going to sell these in batches. It's going to be a batch of 20. And all the proceeds is going to go to Hike for Our Heroes. So the deal we made with the manufacturer in order to bring down the cost as much as possible, because this is a bigger piece, it does take a lot more material. These are expensive and they take quite some time to make. So if you pre-order, those 20 that 20 batch has to be pre-ordered. We will close that batch and it will go into production and everybody will receive it at the same time.
Yeah.
While that's happening, we'll open up another 20 batch. So we're going to do these in batches. We are not going to carry stock, so you can't just order it and expect it to show up. Again, this piece is a special edition for Hike for Our Heroes. So go on the Instagram page, vote and see which one you like, or if you want both for us to do. But again, if you order, unless that 20 batch is sold, we will not go to production. That is the deal that we've made. Yeah. So, and again, the beauty about this is you get to have this beautiful art piece. It's a call it a collectible item, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful piece to have.
We're not gonna make tons of them.
Yeah.
These are pretty difficult pieces to make. We're not. And look, I could give away a little bit of information. We're not just 3D printing them by ourselves. They're being sent off to a manufacturer and being created in marble.
Yeah.
So they're
in the United States.
Yeah, in the US, by the way. Yeah, we're not sending it to China or anywhere else. And it is out of state. And so they're a little difficult to process each piece, and they take time. They really do take time. I understand the entire process. It's what I do. It's my career. So it's not like we could just press print once the piece is done, especially with 3D printing technology these days, and then just kind of keep running it this way, keep running it this way, keep running it this way.
Yeah.
No.
So the other side is, like I said, besides, you get to have this beautiful piece. The proceeds will be going to Hike for Our Heroes. So you're supporting a great organization and you get to have something beautiful to show off in your office, library, somewhere around the house, and take pride by, our father of Armenia, you can call him, Hike Nahapet. So,
patriarch.
But yeah, we can't wait to see your votes. And then as soon as pre-orders are ready, we will go ahead and announce it, and you guys can go on our website, medherosner.com, and place your pre-order, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So, besides that, I wanted to mention that, since we've been back with, season 4, I should say, I wanted to kind of show we've gotten, we've passed, I think, 12,000 subscribers on YouTube, and our listeners on the podcast system is growing. And I just wanted to mention, since being back, the top somewhere around the 50 countries that we're listened to, which is very, very exciting. So I just wanted to list them.
Sure.
It's quite a few.
I'll sit back and listen.
So the top countries that we are listened to is United States, obviously, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, Armenia, Spain, Netherlands, France, Nigeria, India, Poland, Sweden, Japan, Turkey, Argentina, Syria, Bulgaria, Finland, Philippines, right?
Keep going. I'll
Aus-
save my comment for after.
Austria, Ireland,
Uh-huh.
Norway,
Uh-huh.
Belgium, Italy,
Okay.
Serbia, Portugal, Singapore, Brazil, Mexico, Switzerland, Greece, Pakistan, Romania, Senegal, Kenya, right? South Korea, Georgia, Russia, Czech Republic, Lebanon, United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia.
Okay. So that's awesome. I know
And this is in the top 50.
I know
and
we've
it
talked
keeps-
about
keep-
this
keeps
long
going, yeah.
time ago.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we were like when we first started, like first 10 or 15 episodes, we might
Yeah.
have talked about this, but a lot of those make sense.
Yeah.
Right? Just from understanding where like our diaspora is and what. I mean, we don't know who exactly is listening to this.
Yeah.
Like we don't. But
Yeah.
I mean, I do know that in our chats, sometimes we do get certain individuals from certain different countries.
Yeah. Last week, India.
Yeah, India, one of them. And some of them make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not some, a lot of them make sense. But a few of them, it's like, what?
Well, here's the thing.
Like, that's great.
That's why I always say, like, I think from when you look at the demographics, I think 30 to 35%, or maybe even more, of our listeners are non-Armenians.
Well,
and
that
just
I know for a
shows that
fact.
There's people out there who
Yeah.
are interested
Yeah.
in our history, and they enjoy, hopefully, our voices, and
Yeah,
they are
that-
listening to us
that
or
I know for a
watching us
fact.
on YouTube. And I just wanted to thank everybody from
Yeah.
around the world and these countries who take the time to listen to us and enjoy what we present to you guys, and learn a bit about our culture, our history, and all the struggles the Armenian people have gone through from the recorded time of the beginning of our
Yeah.
history to now.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned it on show, but I know I've talked about it with you. I have friends in Australia. One good friend in Australia. Kurt, if you're watching or listening, how are you, buddy?
You gotta say it with an Australian accent.
Ah, man, come on. Don't try and embarrass me right now. But anyway, he lives in Melbourne and he's Greek. He's of Greek descent.
Okay.
Lives in Melbourne, and he started listening to us, and he told me, he's got a bunch of friends who are history buffs and whatnot. He introduced the podcast to them. And
Well, thank you to all the Aussies who are listening
thank you
to
to
us.
the Aussies.
Yeah.
Besides our Armenian brothers and sisters down there.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention is our Patreon supporters. We have quite a few. Some of them, they need to follow up on their profile. Their payments have declined, but you might want to go and check your emails. But to the people who are constantly supporting us, they're not much, but I just wanted to say a special thank you to Aram Balian, Nancy, who didn't put her last name, Mike Hakopian, Robert Khachatryan, or Khachatryan, I should say, Argishti, I don't know if it's Karen or Karen. I apologize. I don't know. Harrison, Valencia, Seda, Filenko, Emily Wilson, Asvatur, Alexia Kevonian, who's been supporting us from day one.
Yeah.
Madeline Avetian. She is
Thank you,
someone,
Madeline.
Madeline. She was on our show. She's going to be on our show again. Odette Zainelian, our great friend Roger Kupelian, and Ellen Mugar. These are the people who have been supporting us from day one in Patreon, and we are thankful to them. And to those of you who want to support the show and continue helping us to bring more content and great episodes and a lot more that we're doing, a lot of projects, please go to patreon.com/medherosner and support us. It starts at $5. As we always joke about it, think of it buying us a cup of coffee once a month.
Yeah, once a month. Cup of coffee.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So again, thank you to everybody. Thank you to our listeners. We truly, truly, truly appreciate it, and we are humbled, and also it motivates us to continue doing this, because sometimes it's hard to motivate yourself to do
Life
this.
grind.
The research, the figuring out what we're going to be talking about, the back and forth between you and I, but yep, we're going to keep on moving on.
Of course.
All right. So
show must go on, man. As the saying goes.
The title of this episode is Brothers in Conflict, Smbat III, Ashot IV, and Sunset of the Bagratuni Rule.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're diving into the interesting historical period, basically the beginning and the end of the Bagratuni dynasty of the Kingdom of Armenia. It all starts with the end of Gagik I's reign around 1020. Or maybe even a few years earlier.
That's always been debated.
Yeah. So
he's he's the eldest son of Smbat III, also known as Hovannes Smbat. We've mentioned plenty of times.
Yeah.
He is, or was. Let's assume we're in that time period. He is the legal heir to the throne.
Yeah.
But there, of course, as the title has kind of given away, brothers in conflict.
Yeah.
Gagik's younger son, Ashot, decided to challenge that, the norm of the hierarchy for people, who's next in line and whatnot. And he wanted to stake his claim to the throne.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is where it begins.
Yeah. Quite the family drama.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the infighting between these two brothers had some serious consequences. It really weakened the Bagratuni dynasty, and eventually the dynasty kind of fell in 1045.
Yeah, it kind of started to weaken a little bit. It's kind of interesting how a lot of historians try to make sense of Ashot's actions. Some argue that Smbat III wasn't the best leader, even though he did some wonderful things, as we've talked about in the past. While Ashot was known as, his nickname was Ashot the Brave, and he had strong military and organizational skills.
Yeah.
So that kind of, when you hear that about somebody, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. It's interesting.
This guy's got his beep together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When you talk about some people believed in this, some people, that right there already shows that they had their own kind of cliques, their own propaganda, trying to almost like, collect votes.
Well,
who's going to be the best?
Yeah. I mean, some people are really, really hardcore strategists. Like, let's just call it what it is. By the book.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's some people who are just raw emotion. Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make arguments for both sides.
Yeah. But very true. Very true. Well, according to contemporary historian Matthew of Edessa, Ashot might have seen it as saving the crown from the impending collapse. But regardless of the justification, one thing is clear: the clash between Smbat and Ashot seriously weakened the kingdom of Armenia.
Oh yeah, I mean it's story of the typical thing that we've talked about all the time: power struggles, story of ambition. I mean, and it obviously can lead to the ultimate downfall of a great kingdom, a great whatever society, or whatever the case is, because it's not just one person who has this ambition. Yeah. Right? You have multiple people who have this power. There's a power vacuum always created when one leader leaves and another steps in.
Yeah. It gets even more intriguing. Ashot wasn't alone in his quest for power. He sought assistance from the Byzantine Emperor Basil II, and even got support from King Sennacherib of Vaspurakan, who was married to their sister Hushhush, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which made him the brother-in-law of both Ashot
and Smbat,
right?
Yeah, so, I mean all the intermarrying and whatnot. Like we always touch on it. It's not limited to just Armenian. This is all sorts of kingdoms and whatnot.
Yeah.
Sennacherib actually agreed to back Ashot and send auxiliary troops during this time to around 1021. Ashot IV gathered a substantial army and marched towards Ani, the capital. There were some clashes under the city walls, but then something unexpected happened.
Yeah, indeed. The newly elected Catholicos Peter Getadarts, I don't know if
Getadarts,
stepped in to mediate between the two warring brothers. He served as the Catholicos of the Armenian Church from 1019 to 1058, which is
a long time.
Pretty long time, right?
What? 40 years almost? My math is correct. 40 years,
almost 40 years.
Anyway, the result of this mediation, and usually was the case. We've always mentioned that the Catholicoi always end up becoming, or the clergymen some way somehow step in to kind of mediate things and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
It was a yet another blow to the kingdom of Armenia. It further fragmented the once united kingdom, which has always been fragmented and then united and fragmented. It's same recurring cycle. According to the agreement reached in Ani, Smbat III would keep control of Ani and its surrounding areas, while Ashot would be crowned as Ashot IV and effectively rule the rest of the Bagratuni domain, including the territories in the province of Ayrarat.
Yeah, well, a split like that seriously undermined the very foundation of the Kingdom of Armenia, which had been restored by Ashot I Bagratuni back in 885, their great-great-great-grandfather, I guess you can call, right?
Yeah.
It's really amazing how internal strife and division can weaken such a once mighty kingdom, right?
I mean, whether it's from an existential force or internal force, you're weak inside. We've mentioned this too many times. You're weak inside. It's not going to work out too well for you.
Well, I mean, you
leave yourself vulnerable on so many levels.
Yeah. I mean, Ashot I in 885, reestablishing the kingdom of Armenia and everything that happened before that, everything that Armenian kingdom went through, all the attacks, the conquering of it and so forth. And then all of a sudden you get to this point, and Gagik I, I mean, he was at the, with his reign, Armenia was at the zenith. We mentioned that, right? And then now you get to this point, and his two sons pretty much are ruining a legacy, an entire dynasty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Web of events, I guess you can call it.
I mean,
in 1021, there were several significant developments happening alongside the power struggle between these two brothers.
Yeah, there certainly was a sequences of complex events that, one of these developments was, for instance, the Byzantine Empire annexation of the territory of Vaspurakan, which we touched on last episode.
Yeah.
This move gave the last king of Vaspurakan, Senekeri Martruni, possessions in Lesser Armenia, specifically in the Armenian Byzantine area of Sebastia.
Yeah.
Did I say that correctly, or did I put too much of an accent?
Sebastia.
Well, I mean, it's spelled Sebastia, but Sebastia.
Sebastia. Okay.
Do we said it?
Whatever. What do you guys think? Is it Sebastia, Sebastia?
Anyway.
What is it? Yeah. Anyways. Now, after Senekerim's death, his son David continued to rule Sebastia, or Sebastia, however you want to say it, as king name only until 1036, followed by his brother Atom and other Artsruni successors. They held power in Lesser Armenia until around 1080.
Until around 1080. And during this time period, there was a very important, let's call it evil or adversary or whatever you want to consider them, protagonist, if you will. Oh no, antagonist. Antagonist. Yes, sorry about that. The Turkic mercenaries. They were causing quite a stir in the region. Turkic mercenaries had been deployed in various Muslim rulerships. Since the 9th century, pretty much. By the 11th century, their numbers had grown and migrations had grown from Central Asia through Iran to Armenia had significantly increased as they more or less were kind of moving west and north.
Yeah, you're quite right. Now, these Turkic raiders were a persistent threat constantly. And in 1016, they had already raided Vaspurakan. In 1021, they invaded Armenia again.
Yeah.
Matthew of Edessa gives us an interesting account of how Lord Vasak Palavuni learned about the raids while he was feasting in the fortress of Bajni.
Yeah. So definitely was a tense situation, tense time. Vasak had around like 5,000 or so cavaliers at his disposal.
Yeah.
And but they were scattered. They were scattered throughout the region, right?
Yeah.
They weren't concentrated in one place. When he heard about the Turkic raiders, he had to quickly gather his forces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alert, alert, alert.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Now, yeah, you're right. And according to Matthew, Vasak didn't have time to gather all his troops. So around 500 cavaliers from Bajni quickly put on their armor and rode out to confront the raiders.
Yeah. So the showdown took place. Wait, let me see how to pronounce this. The monastery of Sarmosavank.
Yeah, you said
there
that
you
right.
go.
Sarmosavank.
Which is basically along the banks of the Kasag River. Vasak and his men charged the Turkic raiders, and after a fierce battle, they managed to slay about 300 of them, forcing the rest to flee. There is no information, or there wasn't any information on how large the forces were of the Turkic raiders, but you know,
but I mean, it's
5,000 men. I'm sure they had their spies, and whatnot, kind of mano.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's a testament to the courage and the determination of Vasak Palavuni and his cavaliers to basically face this Turkic threat.
Yeah, definitely. Some of these historical accounts, the individual goes and sits way up on the hill and watches people die.
Wait, which one was the one who said
I forgot, man. There was so many of them. We've talked about
Wasn't
so many.
Osoric?
I don't know, but there was a bunch of historians. No, he wasn't. No, this one. When we made fun of it, this was sometime in like the 4th or 5th century. We were still talking about that, and I kind of turned into a clown about it.
Yeah, hey, we gotta have fun.
I know, but it's interesting. It's like, hey, we're going to battle. It's like, who do we call? Like, which historian do we want to write this down? Well, we're bringing our historian. Yeah, we're bringing our historian. And let's see if they match.
Imagine the other historian shoots the other historian.
Dude, it's possible, man.
Yep.
It's very possible. But yeah, some of these, like, it's interesting how they documented quite a bit of these conflicts and internal strifes, or whatever the case is, that especially that Armenia faced during some of these tumultuous times.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the political landscape in this region was quite complex during this time, obviously. In 1015 or 1016, within a year period, King George I Bagratuni of Georgia launched a campaign to reclaim Dyke, which had been annexed by the Byzantine Empire in the year 1001 after the death of David Bagratuni.
Yeah, that's right. So George of Georgia, Georgi formed an alliance with the Fatimid Caliph of Egypt. Al-Hakim was his name, to support his campaign. Odd, right? Yeah. It's pretty far south. Interestingly, during his standoff against Basil II, which was a big no-no, Georgi I sought help from none other than Smbat III Bagratuni of Armenia.
That's right. That's right. Now, Skylates, I don't know if I said that right.
When I saw the notes on this, I'm like, how do you say that?
I looked it up. It's Skylates. Skylates, I guess.
There we
That's
go.
how you say it.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. I don't know. You guys can look it up. Tells us that Smbat III agreed to assist George I and provided auxiliary troops. But Basil II, who considered Dyke to be a legitimate Byzantine territory, basically, waited until the death of Al-Hakim in 1021.
Yeah.
He was like, you know what? I'll wait.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Basil II, he was, at the time, he was currently dealing with other matters with some peoples or groups from like the Bulgaria region. So there was like some sort of resistance or whatever the case is. After that was resolved in 1021, he led a military campaign against George the First of Georgia.
Yeah. And the Byzantine emperor swiftly took control of Dyke and then retreated to the mild port city of Trebizond, if I said that right.
Trabzon.
Well,
I've been there. I've actually been
Trebizond?
there. Yeah.
English, you said Trebizond.
Oh yeah, it's spelled
Trebizond.
differently.
Yeah, no, or Trebizond. Okay.
I remember
Anyways.
I remember when I was in Armenia.
Listen, by now we're known that we butcher names, okay? So Trebizond. Let's go with
Trabzon,
that.
I don't know. Yeah, anyway.
City of Trebizond on the Black Sea.
Which should have been ours.
Coast. As winter approached, by autumn of 1022, George I Bagratuni had to acknowledge his defeat and basically sue for peace.
Yeah, so according to the peace treaty, at least from our understanding of it, George I had to relinquish his claims to Dyke, surrender several of his southwestern positions to Basil II, putting a smackdown.
Yeah.
Additionally, he had to provide his 3-year-old son, Bagrad, as a hostage.
Here we go again with the hostage back and forth.
Well, I mean, this wasn't a student exchange program.
Yeah,
this is a little bit more serious.
I know, but
I think.
Well, listen. Every time we've talked about the situation with the kingdom that had to give lands or acknowledge that they were defeated. For some reason, they had to give their son as hostage. I mean, the same situation with Tigran. Tigran was a hostage. It wasn't an exchange program. He was a hostage, right? It was an agreement. But
these are the only details we have, so it almost sounds like a really lopsided trade.
Yeah, but I can't imagine like a 3-year-old son being taken away from their family, their mother, and all of a sudden, who's raising this child? I mean,
I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see what. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what came out of that exchange with the kid.
Yeah,
more so than the lands and whatnot.
Here's the thing: it doesn't end there. Basil II had earlier accused Smbat III of supporting rebel forces against him, using it as an excuse to continue his policy of annexing Armenian territories, which already included Taron, Dyke, and Vospurakan.
Yeah, it's quite
Does this
a bit.
remind you of something?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. Again, complex web of alliances, conflicts, power struggles, same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
But Basil's ambitions played a significant role in shaping some of the course of events that are to follow.
Yeah, you're right. It seems that Smbat III was facing intense pressure, and on January 6th, the year 1022, he sent Catholicos Peter Geradarts on a diplomatic mission to Trebizond, or Trebizond, to negotiate with Emperor Basil II.
That's right. So under the threat of possible invasion, and possibly due to the fact that Smbat III's authority had been greatly undermined by his brother's actions, the King of Ani, who was already without an heir since the loss of his son, Ashot IV, decided to bequeath, or kind of just leave it to the next of kin, if you will, his kingdom to the Byzantine Empire upon his passing.
Yeah.
So it was... I think it's pretty apparent that Basil II kind of...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't have a son. He doesn't have an heir. Let's maneuver this properly. Because, I mean, listen, if you're the emperor of the Byzantine Empire, you're thinking way ahead of things.
Of course.
You're thinking way ahead of things.
At least 5 steps ahead, right?
But more than that.
Now, it's actually worth noting that there is some debate among scholars about the terms of this agreement. Some, like the renowned Armenian historian Leo, argue that Smbat III didn't fully agree to the terms and that the Catholicos Peter I played a significant role in putting the deal together.
Yeah.
So here comes the clergy that is
yeah
getting involved.
and it gets more interesting about him.
Yeah.
So Catholicos Peter I was seen as a part of the pro-Byzantine faction. We talked about that last time, how there was some pro-Byzantine factions, some not-so-Byzantine factions that were kind of feuding, as they typically do or did. So some of the Armenian elites, they were opposed by a faction led by Sparapet Varam Parlavuni, what we talked about their
Yeah.
emergence in the last episode as well.
Yeah. There was also a lot of harsh criticism directed to Catholicos Peter I as well.
Mhm.
The contemporary historian Aristakis Lastivertsi criticized him of his greed and materialism, calling him a lover of gold and silver who was keen on receiving precious gifts.
That doesn't sound too far off.
Does this
from
remind
today.
you of something?
Yeah.
I mean, history repeating
Of course it
itself.
does. Well, you know, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. Peter the First's reign was certainly controversial from start to finish. His predecessor, Catholicus Sarkis I, broke tradition by renouncing his seat during his lifetime in 1019, paving the way for Peter the First's election.
Which is very, very interesting.
Very interesting.
How dynastic, I should say, considerations seem to play a role in Peter the First's election. His brother, Catholicos Hachik I Arsharuni, had reigned before Sarkis I, and their uncle Anania of Mok, which we've mentioned many times, had also been a Catholicos. So
keep the wealth in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just the way some clergy works.
Yeah.
Not clergymen, but the whatever you want to consider it, whatever word you want to coin.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very true. The reasons for Sarkis I's unprecedented abdication remain somewhat of a mystery. Some scholars, I'm sure they left that out of the history books. Some scholars have suggested age as a factor, but most Armenian Catholicos were elected at mature and old ages and served until their death.
Very true.
Which is true, yes.
Yeah. We've seen that many times. Other theories include Peter I's initial support for Smbat III during his standoff with Ashot IV, his Byzantophile orientation, I guess you can call it, or the desire of bishop and archbishop to see the brother or former Catholicos Hachik I once again assume the patriarchal seat. So,
it's clear.
I mean, you see what he's doing, right?
Well, I mean, look, you have to take into consideration that this is at the time, not that it's not now, but I would say it's not now compared to back then, a very powerful position.
Of course.
We talked about how the military and the spiritual side of things, the spiritual establishment, had to be almost one and the same.
Of course.
At that time, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, you can make an argument why it may or may not be. It's a different podcast.
Or a different episode.
Different episode. But you have to understand.
Which podcast, Mike?
I don't have another podcast.
I'm just saying.
I just usually have really freakishly long conversations with other friends of mine about these types of things. It's true that, so his like this spiritual role was and is a powerful position, and you want to kind of keep it in the family for a plethora of reasons, not just the wealth. There's other reasons with politics and whatnot that you need to keep grips on, right? Because if you bring somebody from the outside, they're going to bring different ideologies, different, not the beliefs, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And it might kind of train wreck certain sensitive situations.
Yes.
This is just the way it is.
Yeah.
With basically, the significant influence and control over vast lands being one example, right?
Yeah.
Settlements, monasteries, churches, by certain bishop seats of their, I don't know what the hierarchy or the names are, their assistants or whatever you want to call it, within the church, like during that Bagratuni period. Again, it's kind of like a president or whatnot, or a leader kind of elects his cabinet members and whatnot, and kind of needs to keep things tidy.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting is that it appears that the agreement between Smbat III and Catholicos Peter I, this agreement of the handover of basically Armenia, the kingdom, to the Byzantine Empire, did not sit well with a lot of people.
Of course I wouldn't. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So when the news of the agreement reached Ani, there was obviously significant unrest and opposition, as
Yeah.
there should have been. Patriot faction led by Sparapet Palavuni vehemently rejected the agreement and vowed to resist its implementation, so to speak.
Yeah. Again, this reminds me of the current state of what's happening, this back and forth, the division, the opposition, the current government, the deal making behind giving away lands
Yeah.
for peace and
you're brokering
wealth,
deals.
for your own greed. And it's very, very
I mean,
frustrating.
Look, you can make arguments on both sides. There's certain individuals that might, maybe be more empathetic towards the situation. Say, well, he's trying to do the best he can or she can for the livelihood of every single individual in the region.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe there's a devastating charge by somebody from the outside and might savage and kill people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We get it. But I mean, how many times has this happened?
Over
Times. And over and over. And it's still,
it's like
still
Groundhog's
happening.
Day.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah. But the situation escalated to the point where Catholicos Peter I was threatened, and in 1023 he was forced to flee Ani. Got on his horse and left.
Did he take his gold and silver with him?
I'm sure he did. He sought refuge in with Sennacherib Artsuni in the last, who was the last king of Vaspurakan, I should say, who had given him his kingdom for lands in Sebastia under Byzantine rule, basically.
Yeah.
So, he's like, hey, I'm part of them. I gave my lands, come here. You'll be safe.
It's curious, though, how he just bounced. He just took off with whatever he could. It's very interesting.
Weak man.
Yeah, of course. Well, they typically are.
Yeah.
Peter I, during this time, remained in Lesser Armenia until about 1026, likely due to the passing of Emperor Basil II, good chess player apparently, and King Sennacherib Artsuni in 1025. So it was like a really quick succession of pretty powerful individuals.
Yeah.
Losing to this, the time.
It was re-election after re-election after
re-election for you, re-election for you, re-election for you.
Upon his return to Ani, resentment against Peter I persisted. In 1033, he was once again compelled to flee, maybe on a donkey this time. This time, the monastery of Zoravang in Byzantine held Vaspurakan, where he remained until 1037.
Yeah, I mean, some of these frequent withdrawals suggest that Peter I had pretty powerful support from the local Armenians and the Byzantine Empire, right?
Yeah. Local Armenians who were for the Byzantine.
That faction. Yeah. Good, good
well,
addition.
I mean, it's really clear that Peter I had allies not only within the clergy, but some high-ranking Armenian aristocrats like Ves Sarkis, who was known as Ves Sarkis, the Lord of Dekor.
Dekor. Yeah. Where is Dekor?
I don't know.
Did we look that up on the map?
Maybe we did.
I don't know. I don't think we've ever mentioned it, so I was just curious. I didn't. My bad. I didn't bother looking it up. I should have.
Well.
Anyway, so Ves Sarkis, new character inserted into the conversation, was quite a prominent figure. He held Byzantine court title as Vestes or Vestes. I think Vestes, whatever. Which was Vestes.
Yeah.
God, we're such knuckleheads. Which was awarded by Byzantine emperors to high-ranking officials serving the empire.
You gotta have fun, Mike. You gotta have fun.
We are.
Yeah.
Fun.
Now, this title had been in use since the time of Emperor John I Zimiskis in the late 10th century and was often combined with other titles like Magistros ton Officion, which is Byzantine variant of master of offices.
Yes.
He was a manager at the office.
Yeah, he managed all the offices.
Yeah.
So Vest Sarkis was proud of his Byzantine titles, and in one of the inscriptions from 1033, he referred to himself as the quote unquote beloved servant of 3 Roman kings, highlighting the honorific titles he received from Emperors Basil II, Constantine VIII, and Romanos III.
It's funny how he referred to himself. Like,
the man was proud.
Yeah, he was a proud dude.
The man was proud.
Yeah. Now, it's fascinating how these titles and alliances played a role in the intricate policies of the time. The Armenian aristocracy certainly had strong connections with the Byzantine Empire.
Yeah.
I mean, before that, the nobility of Armenians always
they were always at each other's throats.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it really, really I mean, I don't think this has gone away, because if you look at the power struggle right now, it's always been between the noble families, right?
Okay. So what does the nobility remind everyone of? Like some of these powerful families, let's say in the United States, that aren't voted in by any of us, right? Like, I'm not going to name names. Let's leave that out. But some of these powerful families that aren't holding office positions by our votes, they have incredible amounts of pull, right? And even throughout, let's say, American history, for some of our more American history knowledgeable audience, you know that there has been powerful influences from powerful individuals, powerful families, powerful lineages that have influenced things and have had problems with one another, right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not limited to just our naharars. Yeah. It's the same thing. So
you mentioning that, it's very fascinating how the Armenian elites during this time were deeply divided into opposing camps.
Of course.
Each with its own vision of the future of Armenia, which is what's exactly happening today.
Well, doesn't it look, listen,
I mean, come on, think about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not refuting, I'm just adding to what you're saying is, if you really think about it, right? Like, it doesn't mean just because we have fancy office buildings and we live in like modern technology world and whatever the case is, that these people 1,000 years ago weren't savvy businessmen.
No, of course.
No, they knew what could benefit them first, and maybe the people around them, from which side they will strike deals with.
Yes.
If they have enough money, if they have enough clout and power, they're already having conversations. They're thinking steps ahead. They have to. Yeah. Right? If they have that kind of money, they're not just out, being a farmer or whatnot, not that there's anything wrong with it, but these people have money, power, influence, whatever the case is, they're making deals, man.
Yeah.
So who's giving them the better piece of the pie?
Yeah.
Right? This is what's going on. You have to understand it. This is what was going on. They're willing and dealing. They were not any less businessmen than our businessmen today.
I know.
100%.
But my point to this is that everything you guys are listening to, I mean, you can agree with me or disagree, but at least for me, when I'm hearing this, it is exactly what is happening today, as of the year 2023.
Money over identity.
These noble families.
Money
you
is.
don't have to
identity.
name names, but you all know who we are talking about, and the opposition and the back and forth, and it is all for their own greed and gain, and not for the well-being of Armenia.
Of course.
This is our biggest problem.
I mean, look, and again, this is not trying to get into like modern day politics, but let's say family A, wealthy family A, we can replace them as the Naharars.
Wealthy family's A son just walked into the parliament today.
Whatever. I don't know who you're talking about. I really don't, but
they know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't know who you're talking about, but let's say they align with Russian businesses, right?
Yes.
They're going
exactly.
Oh wow, I'm on point today.
Family A.
Okay, so let's say family B aligns with, let's say, I don't know,
Western
American businesses or Persian businesses or Iranian businesses, right? This is, now you're going to have issues. Well, I've got this much money and this is the situation, and then basically. Anyway, carrying on.
Moving on. Yes.
Yeah. So on one side, you had commander of the Armenian army, Varam Pahlavi, and his supporters, who were staunch advocates for the maintenance of Armenian national sovereignty and independence. I guess you can call them your conservatives. Maybe it sounds like it.
Yeah. Well, on the other side, figures like Vestsarkis and Catholicos Peter I believed that Armenians' merger with the Byzantine Empire would be in the nation's best interest.
The liberals.
Yeah. Let's come together with always be under somebody else's rule.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's important to note that both sides didn't view themselves as traitors. Of course they didn't.
No.
They genuinely believed that it benefits the betterment of Armenia or Greater Armenia or whatever the case is, but in their respective approaches. But this stark division within Armenian society created obviously significant tension. Kind of reminds you of what we're living in today.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Comment. Let us know. Like, does this remind you of what is happening today in Armenia?
Well, not just Armenia, here too. I mean, anybody.
No, but we're talking about Armenian history. So forget about here. I'm talking about this is if you follow Armenian politics, what we are talking about, it is almost like repeating itself with different characters and different families, right? But again, nobility. It's like
a video game simulation.
Yeah, what do you think? Let us know. Put a comment, in the video or in the chat, and then those of you listening to us, I don't know, send us a message, email us, something like that. We really want to know your opinion. What do you guys think about? Because we're at that point where the Bagratuni kingdom is collapsing because of these two brothers. Yeah. And their strife,
and then the certain Nakharar families that
and again
outside
outside
with
sources,
them and outside sources and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So now on June 29th, 1033, a solar eclipse occurred, and the renowned Armenian astrologer John Kozern interpreted as a bad omen. Ooh. He saw it as a reflection of the deteriorating moral values in Armenia and predicted that the nation would soon face great tragedies.
Yeah, omen is correct. This interpretation kind of sheds light on deep upheaval and dissatisfaction among Armenian population.
Yeah.
Their leaders were engaged in internal conflicts, weakening the kingdom. And their spiritual leaders were often driven by greed, of course, or willing to cede Armenian land to the Byzantine Empire, which many Armenians probably saw as betrayal. Obviously.
Well, of course. I mean,
take your gold and your silver and just hand over lands.
Yep. Now, even though the Byzantine Empire was ruled by Armenian emperors and empresses, their policies were naturally in line with the imperialist interests, often odds with preserving Armenian national sovereignty. So
yeah, but I mean, at a cost.
Yeah,
it always was at a cost. Basically, after Emperor Basil's second passing in 1025, there were changes in the Byzantine leadership. Obviously, with Constantine VIII and later Romanus III, Argyros taking the throne. Romanus III married his niece to King Smbat III around 1032, strengthening ties between Armenia and the Byzantine Empire.
There you go. So, another merger through marriage. Now Smbat is obligated to,
of course,
serve the interests of Romanos III. So,
but again, the large empire always gets the bigger piece of the pie. They always do.
Yeah. So in 1038, King Smbat III renovated the Horomos Monastery and erected the Church of Saint John, underscoring the complex dynamics of this historical period.
Yeah, the political and cultural landscape of Armenia during that time was marked by a lot of internal divisions, as we've been mentioning. Also, external pressures, shifting alliances, as we've mentioned, that had more or less really, really significant consequences in the way things play out, or were playing out, and will eventually play out.
You are correct, my friend. Yeah. You are correct. The passing of Ashot IV IV
Yeah.
in 1040 and Smbat III in 1041, literally a year away from one another, marked a significant turning point in the history of the Armenian kingdom. Basically.
Yeah. According to our historian friend Aristakis Lastivertsi, after Smbat III's death in 1041, Vestsarkis declared himself the new king of Armenia. He even proclaimed himself as a potential founder of a new dynasty, and a move that didn't sit well with many nobles because Sarkis wasn't from the Bagratuni lineage.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't he, right?
Sounds
Everybody
like
took opportunity to
usurpation almost.
Yeah. Now, our friend Aristakis Lastivertsi mentions that Vestsarkis seized the royal treasury and entrenched himself in the inner fortress located south of the capital of Ani. Some historians argue that Vestsarkis may not have been interested in founding a new dynasty, especially since he was childless.
Interesting.
So he
just took over the
treasury
and he just like locked himself in there.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
What is he?
Like those
Scrooge McDuck?
like those crazy climate change activists.
Like chained himself
glued himself to the treasury or something. Say, I will not go.
It's mine. This is all mine.
I mean, it worked. Apparently it worked.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a debate among historians about Vestsarkis' true intentions. While some suggest that he may have aimed to rule under Byzantine suzerainty as a governor, others question that notion.
Yeah. Regardless of Vestsarkis' intentions, the situation in Armenia was marked by anarchy and chaos during this period. Now, in 1042, Armenian lords led by Gregory Palavuni, rejected Vestsarkis as a king and instead proclaimed Ashot IV, the 18-year-old son of Gagik II as the new king of Armenia.
However, Peter I, the Catholicus, had little choice but to support this decision. So this is already causing more issues, right?
Yeah.
They conducted a traditional, I guess, what is it called? An investiture rite for Gagik II in the Mother Cathedral of Ani.
Yeah. Now, it's also worth noting that prior to Gagik's coronation from 1041 to 1042, when Vestsarkis declared himself the ruler of Ani and even the new king of Armenia, the Bagratuni kingdom experienced a period of anarchy and chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I could go into more Game of Thrones references, but I'm not. I'll save you guys the trouble.
Hey, look.
David. Well, hey, look what?
David the Landless.
Yeah, David the Landless. I mean, then we get into David the Landless. The kingdom of Tashish also made claims to the crown. So now we've got what? Is that three? That's three ways. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a three-way thing going right now.
Yeah.
It's like a Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Or it's getting there.
It's getting there. Ding, ding, ding. The fourth one's gonna run in about 2 minutes.
but that was rejected by the establishment of Ani.
Of course.
But still,
you're landless. What are you doing, bro?
Yeah, you're the landless, man.
Come on.
Well, I'm trying to change my nickname.
That reminds me of like when during the you have the candidacy of people claiming they're gonna run for president, and there's like somebody who you're like shows up where you're like, what?
Yeah.
Really? You're running?
Yeah.
Really? Come on, man. Go back to
there's a few people that
Now, during this turbulent time, the Byzantine Empire, prompted by Vestsarkis again, made several attempts to annex the Bagratuni kingdom. These efforts were met with resistance, particularly by Sparapet Palavuni.
Yeah, Matthew of Edessa lamented the decline in the martial spirit and discipline of the Armenian army after the death of Ashot IV. Many warriors began neglecting their mandatory daily duties and training and whatnot. God, it's just like, talk about falling apart. And probably did a lot of debaucherous things once you kind of get out of your routine or regime or whatever you want to call it. So, local bards who sang songs recounting ancient Armenian history turned into epics while they were drinking and dancing and things like this. This is what like some of the historical doctrine tells us. So gusans were creative and performing artists in ancient and medieval Armenia. They were traveling bards who performed improvisational music for audiences. They were also singers, instrumentalists, dancers, storytellers, and professional folk actors.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like, I wonder if these people were just either easing their pain or if it was, I don't know how bad things got with the military.
I mean, I apologize. I keep bringing this to comparing it to today's time.
For them to kind of preoccupy themselves with
distraction, right? Distraction. I'm going to tie it into that. So today, a report came out as of today, Thursday, right? Well, actually, this report came out not today. It came out a couple of days ago. Which is it's just unbelievable. The recruitment or the desire for military service in Armenia down almost by 50%.
Oh yeah. Why would they?
And why? Because they are distracted by the partying, young men wanting to go travel at the clubs. I mean, like I said, when I was in Armenia, I mean, it was exploding, the nightlife till 4 a.m, 5 a.m, crazy. And these kids who are supposed to be in the army serving at that age, they don't want to go.
So here's the thing. I mean, again, I'm not trying to talk about American politics or comparisons or whatever, but it's a good conversation point about what you just said. Not that it's wonderful today, and again, another story for another type of podcast. There are benefits here that, let's say, that are provided that give incentives for individuals to sign up. I don't know about what the incentives over there are, but I can imagine it's not very much.
No. So
to serve for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
I can imagine it's not very much and not even close to being comparable to, let's say, the benefits of what would it be like to serve here or maybe a country like Russia. I don't know. I'm just assuming because if you're a bigger nation, you probably have some pretty awesome incentives.
So here's the thing. I know when I was there, they were talking about, so there's the Vazgen Sarkisyan military school, which you can go, I think once you graduate, or I don't know if you can go from the age of 16 or you have to graduate high school and then go, where you're contracted for 5 years, I believe. And then depending on what you want to do.
Yeah, if anyone knows the information, please let us know.
What the specialties, I think the contract is 5 years or 6 years. After you do that, during that time, first you're becoming like a specialist, let's say a tank specialist or Air Force or whatever it is,
engineer or whatever the case is,
the incentives are, first you're getting paid well. After certain, I guess you have levels of graduations to go through. You get an apartment, so your life is set. It's just kind of like this. But that is, you have to qualify to go to that school. But as the general army or the special forces, whatever it is, to recruit them, there's no incentive, right?
Of course there isn't.
So, but here, even if you go to the army at 18, there's incentives, right?
Look, you and I went to the same high school, right? Do you remember how often the Navy would set up tables? How often the Army would set up tables?
Marines,
Funny, quick little story, since we're kind of getting a little lighter here about it. I don't know if you ever encountered this at Marshall. There was a Navy table set up, and I think it was like my first year there. And guy calls me over. I was a shy kid, so I walked up and whatever. And he's like, what do you like to do? And And I told him, I'm like, I play ice hockey. And He's like, the Navy has an ice hockey team. And I laughed at him. But anyway, he started telling me about the incentive programs. And I didn't understand any of that stuff back then, right? But they're actively recruiting you because they know they have something to back up that recruitment with in terms of incentivizing it. Where you sign up, you go through your whatever, boot camps, whatever the case is, you're guaranteed to have continuing education, money provided, discounts on cars, homes, whatever the case is. And that's a fact. It really is a fact.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is not getting into the can of worms of veterans who are unfortunate these days, but again, some of these individuals have taken advantage of these things, and at least that incentive program is there.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
Yeah.
But traveling
Going
back
back
to the
yes.
11th century, according to Matthew, some of the best warriors abandoned the Bagratuni domain and joined the ranks of the Byzantine Empire
Yeah.
to basically serve there because they saw no significance of being part of it anymore.
Either that or
which
maybe they
is,
got
yeah,
incentivized. I mean, you're dealing with the Roman Empire.
gold and silver.
Yeah, gold and silver. Who knows?
Or ranks,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, again,
They got paid, right?
Of course they
Back
did.
then,
I'm sure they did.
got
yeah,
paid,
but
so.
again, you know, we don't have details on that, but I'm sure the Roman Empire or the Byzantine Empire would have probably provided you a lot more than at this point of faltering, dwindling Armenia.
Yes,
right?
Yes, sir.
So Gagik II's short reign as the last king of the Bagratuni Central Kingdom was marred by numerous trials and tribulations, ultimately contributing to the downfall of once a powerful dynasty.
Yeah, the Bagratuni dynasty. And we will cover Gagik II's short reign on our next episode. And after that, we'll do kind of like an episode covering the entire Bagratuni, call it a renaissance, and that will be the end of the Bagratunis, and then from there we'll continue on until we get to the Cilician kingdom. But that just it just shows how greed and that desire to be king, to be almighty and powerful between two brothers, can destroy an entire dynasty. Imagine if they were, let's say, they had come to an agreement where, hey, let me lead, and if something happens to me, you can take over. Because at that time none of them had sons. So, and then if one of them had a son, great. It's like, that's the thing. It was never for the betterment of the kingdom. It was about self.
But even having a son doesn't, as history has shown us, doesn't really guarantee you anything.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. It's almost like a crapshoot.
True.
It is.
Very true.
Some sons and daughters have turned out to be fantastic, as we've talked about. Some of them have not.
Yeah. Well, this is a little bit of a short story. You know, we don't have much about this. There isn't that much content.
But as always, a good conversation.
Yeah, we try to present as much as possible. But this is what happened between these two brothers, I should say. I think at about that hour mark, I started, my tongue starts twisting. But it's unfortunate, but this is what happened, and things could have been different if these two brothers had just agreed to either rule together or kind of respect one another and let one rule and be unified. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Gagik II. I mean, he was 18 years old when he took he was crowned as king. Can you imagine at 18 ruling an entire kingdom?
And now he's got,
and he has so many people chirping in his ear,
And well, besides that, you have, Vasak and Landless.
David the Landless.
And Landless.
Yeah.
Making claims.
Yeah.
Trying to make claims. More of the same.
Yeah. But let us know what you think, guys. For me, like I said, I really want to know, what do you guys think? What are the similarities to what's happening today with everything that happened during this situation with the two brothers, and even before with Gagik the first's reign, their father, But let's see. So that's it for this, and as we mentioned, go to our Instagram page and go ahead and let us know which sculpture you guys prefer, or both. We really want to know. We have to make a decision to start opening the pre-orders. We're excited, and like I said, this is for a great cause. And if you want to support Hike for Our Heroes on their own, please do so. Like I said, these people are doing phenomenal work. And I have to mention something. I know a lot of people, and this is what really, really, really kind of bothers me about our culture and our unity is when they took Artsakh, everybody again, unity for 2 weeks, helping, fundraising and this and that. And then again, dead. Now, I know right now it's not the best time. Everybody's being conservative with financially here in the States. It's not the best time, I understand. But those little amounts that you might be spending on little things that don't matter that you can use to donate to these organizations, they're really doing big work. And this fatigue we're under, we have to snap ourselves out of it and start thinking about the future, because I think if we don't wake up, um just like how the end of the Bagratunis, the beginning of the end, we're, I would say, almost there, where it'd be the beginning of the end of the Armenian statehood.
Yeah.
So snap yourselves out of it, wake up. I know that it's far from us, especially when we're in the diaspora. We tend to get caught up with our daily lives and we have our own problems here. But we always have to remember that that is our motherland over there. And without Armenia, none of us have anything to identify with, which will psychologically ruin so many lives.
It'll mess
our
up a
children,
lot of people.
their grandchildren, their identity. It'll be
100%.
lost. That's it. We'll be just like gypsies, just wandering in the world.
I know you're born in Yerevan. I'm born and raised here, and if I don't have something like that to identify with, if it vanishes, at least in my lifetime, I'm not gonna feel any good about it, man.
So let's unite. Let's shake ourselves and start doing some work and helping one another. Help these great organizations who are actually doing something. And watch out for the fake
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
A lot of them. That's the biggest problem.
Not just with the Armenians out there. Just all over.
Yeah, there's a lot of these organizations claiming they're doing this, they're doing that. Be careful with it. A lot of them are, I don't want to say scams, but a lot of them, they do it for their own prosperity. But whatever.
Call it what it is. Spade is spade.
So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/medherosnej, donating $5 a month to help us continue bringing exciting and new content about our history. Follow us on Instagram for all the updates, and then we'll be back next week with a new episode covering Gagik II of Bagratuni Kingdom. Anything else you want to mention, Mr. Balian? No?
Hope you guys enjoy the statue.
Yeah. Hope you guys
had fun working on it.
Yes. All right, everyone. As we always say at the end of every episode, respect one another.
Love one another.
Until the next episode, take care of yourselves.